Hello everyone, my name is Faisal Al-Sayed. Welcome to the Smart Jump Technology presentation. Today I'm going to introduce you to a Smart Jump technology. It's a technology that will help the equestrian world to enhance and increase the effectiveness and the efficiency of their practice ring. I'm going to introduce or mention briefly about the sport. So the show jumping is one of the aspects of equestrian world where riders jump their horses over fences. So there is a common issue that's faced by many riders around the globe, which is in the practice ring when riders start riding, usually have the height of the jumps relatively small, so they have the ability to warm up and connect to their horses, and then they increase the height to do more intense practice. So the challenge comes to when the athlete is finished warming up and they need to increase the height of the jump. So the challenge of this will require the athletes to dismount and perform the tasks manually. This could lead to many injuries or disruption of the training, which can result in an optimal result of the training. It's also can cause many injuries because another option is to require a human being to be in the ring to do this task, which is really dangerous when the horse is in the ring being trained. So the technology allow the athletes to increase and decrease height of the jump remotely through the app. So the application also allow the user to replace a fallen uh, uh, pole, which is more likely to happen because the sport is all about jumping fences and make sure that you keep the poles in place and not knock them down. So if a pole has been knocked, you have to replace it, and that will require the athlete to dismount again and put the pole back. So the application will allow this feature to happen remotely by connecting the application to the hardware component, the smart hardware component that we came up with. The purpose of the application is to reduce physical interaction and increase human-computer interaction and increase safety in the training place by not allowing a human being to be walking into the ring while the horse is being trained. So I'll cover some of the user tasks that's covered in the application. So that's paired jump. It's a task that it's an initial and a mandatory to for the user to be able to use the application. The application is connected to the smart stands by connecting through Bluetooth. So each stand has a transmitter that's connected to the automatic track. So the user has to pair the application to the transmitter so they can have an access to the jump to control it. Horse profile that will allow the user to create profile for their horses with a unique training set and training history as well. So that will keep track of their their horse's training history and see how the horse is performing. So mode is for a human perspective. So this allows the user to create modes with the specific training sets. Let's say that there's a coach teaching 20 students per day. So on each student has their training specific training set. Let's say average or difficult or normal. For the coach to do this, they would have to just select a mode from the list rather than just like do it manually, and it will save them time. The setup gesture is a pretty cool feature that is also included in the application, which allow the rider or any relative users to perform the increase and the decrease movement by moving their phone according to a specific movement that they recorded through the setting steps. So the timer is also another cool feature that allow minimize the interaction between the user and the application. It allowed the users to set up a time and select an action to be performed when the time ends. So when the users start their rides, they don't have to pick up their phone out of their pocket and perform the task manually. The last thing is the manual increase and decrease is mandatory. So let's say that a user doesn't want any of the above features, so they would do this increase and decrease just manually by clicking on the buttons to increase and decrease the height. So we'll go to the differences between the first prototype and the second prototype, as you see here. So on the left hand, there's the first prototype that I came up with. It's based on brainstorming, and just like design it like on my own without having any feedback from anyone else. So as you see, it's pretty simple, has arrows up and downs, mode, timer, profile, and setting buttons. So the difference between the first one and the second one, as you see, like changing in the interface a little bit. We're making like the interface more colorful, and as you see, we replaced the arrows with plus and minus as it's more relative to the height, increasing and decreasing. We also added the switch for turning on and turning off gesture. So the changes applied here was conducted from the feedback and the usability test that we done. So we done a usability test on 4 candidates. We observed them using 4 kind of observation strategies. Then after conducting this observation details, we came up with a lot of feedbacks that included with the interview and the questionnaire feedback. And this is the result we came up with. So same applies for all other pages in the application. So as you see here, this is the setting page. It's pretty simple, pretty neat. There is no complication in it. The back button has been replaced to be down in the center to be more visible to the user to use. And here's the pair jump steps. Not too many changes to it. We add a shortcut to it, so in case the Bluetooth is off, as the Bluetooth required to be on for this step to pair the jump. So we added a shortcut that allowed the user to go from this page to the Bluetooth back and forth to turn on the Bluetooth and continue pairing jumps. Creating profile, the only thing that we reduce are we allow the user to take a photo, not only just upload them photo. So that will allow the rider to take a photo of their horses and upload it right away. It's also, we minimize the number of steps of setting up jumps and heights. So instead of doing them separately, we make it as a one step. And we replaced the back button to be down in the center again. So for the mode is allowing the user to enter the name of the mode. We also reduce the number of steps of setting up training stats. So we make it in one step with one button instead of 2 separate steps. So for the gesture, there's no changes except the back button. For the timer, it's the same. So that will allow the user to select to set up time and then select the action to be performed when the time ends. So the process that we went through to come up with the final prototype is we ran a usability test. We observed the candidates by the 4 strategies of usability test, which is silent observer and the think aloud observer and the consecutive observer. So after we ran the usability and the strategies on the 4 candidates, we got feedback. After we got the feedback of the notes of the observation, we interviewed the users. We got more feedback on how to improve the interface of the application. And then by the end of the session, we provide them a questionnaire to have more feedback on the interface and if that application could have a future in the equestrian world. The 4 candidates were like equestrian riders from the field. We asked them to come to Dalhousie University in the 4th floor of the lab to perform the observation process. So in terms of implementation, I used the JIN environment tool, which allowed me to have access to many of the iOS and Android components. It's a pretty simple implementation tool. It will allow me to have the interface process be done in HTML and CSS and JSON. Allowed me to create a lot of error handling, and it's pretty simple. There's no complication to it. Thank you for listening. Now we're gonna go to the prototype demo. As you see here, this is the main page. This is the button where a user can turn on or turn off the gesture. So as a first and initial step, user will go to setting to pair the jump. You will click on pair jump. The Bluetooth will start searching for transmitter that detected on the area. User will select the required or the desired jumps. In case that the user changed their mind of any of pairing of these jumps, they can unselect them or select a different one. Then they can be done by that, and the jump will be paired. In case that the user have the Bluetooth off, they can click on the Bluetooth button to direct them to the Bluetooth page setting to turn it on, and then go back to the pair jump to continue the process of pairing the jumps. For creating profile steps, the user will take photo of their horses to be uploaded, or upload the photo from the camera roll in their device, and that will allow them to have a photo of the horse in the profile. For the name, they would say they will enter the horse name, and then select the jumps and the height, which is the training characteristic. So we paired 4 jumps. They would set the height of the jumps, the height of the first jump. So there are 2 options, either to set the height like in a text field, or select it from the list here. So that since the height are fixed number, and it's pretty common among equestrian riders, so we thought that we should have both options to allow the user to have more convenient ways of doing it. So they can select from the list, and they would say save. So one of the error handling we add, that let's say that the user didn't want to select from the list, so they would enter some digits, 1.2, and this will allow the user to set it manually. But one of the error handling is that let's say that the user entered alphabet in the text field of the height, then the application will prevent them from going forward with the steps, saying that input is not a height. So they have to input a height instead of the alphabet, and then they can set it. Then it's done. So you will create the profile. For creating mode, so the user will create mode by entering the name of the mode. So average. Then they will select that the jumps and set up the height. They can save it. And one of the error handling we added is that let's say that the user left the name of the profile, the mode empty. So when they click create, the application will prevent them to move forward with the step, because it required them to have a name of the mode. The same goes for the profile. So for the setup gesture, so as you see here, there's up and down. So this is for up movement, and this is for down movement. So user will click on up, they will start recording their movement, and then they would stop, and then they will save it. Then the gesture for up movement is ready to use, and they would do the same. So they start recording, they stop, they said no, we did a mistake. The user has the ability to delete the recording, and then start doing it again, and save it this time, so they can be ready to use it. So going back to the main page here, we created mode, we created profile. So we would say that we want to apply mode. So we created 2 modes. So we'll select mode 1, then it will be applied. Same goes for the profile. We created 2 profile. I said I want our profile 2 to be applied, then it gets applied. For the timer feature, as you see here, the user will set up a timer. So let's say that at 4:25 p.m. I need the application to perform change height for jump 1. So I would select meter, save it, and then save the setting for the timer. Then the application will perform the setting at 4:30 of the given time. This is the increase and decrease button. So if the user try to avoid all the features, so they can increase the height manually and decrease the height also manually. That's pretty much for my technology. I hope you guys enjoy watching this. Thank you for your time.